voting. Hey, it's the Capitol, but nobody's storming it. Welcome back, folks, to Amped Up with Cliff Schecter. I'm Cliff Schecter, and we've got a great guest today. I've got Walter Rhein is joining us. What are you, Girl Dad, I believe is your title?
Yes.
I mean, Cliff, I got to say, Walter not only is a great writer and has a terrific Substack, he is a rising star when it comes to the genre of philosophy. Is that about right, Walter? I mean,
I just picked a category. I hope it fits, but it's been.
Awesome.
I think to myself sometimes Rousseau, Descartes, and then there's Walter Rhein. And so he's making his appearance, which is important. As usual, there's something in the beginning that goes out of order or whatever because I change it up and I'm a goofball. But how could I not have obviously introduced David Shuster, my co-host and better TV half, better screen half, former MSNBC host, Emmy winner.
And that is my cue to ask Walter a question. Walter, you were just saying a moment ago, you're about an hour outside of Minneapolis. You got kids there. They stayed home from school. What's the mood across the state or in the community where you are?
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, last night I didn't sleep much. I had a really hard night and just kind of up. And I just elected to just not send my kids to school today. And the concern is there's some activity where they're pushing, there's some pushback in Minnesota to get ice out of there. And of course, we're right on one of the main highways where I live. So, we've just been worried about them coming this way. And this is just unacceptable that, and this isn't the first day. This is basically goes back since that, post-turtle Nepo baby came down the golden elevator. From that day, racists have been approaching my family and threatening them and harassing them. So this is 10 years of this crap now. And I just don't think I should have to live like this.
Walter, I had a fascinating conversation with my 12-year-old daughter last night to try to explain what had happened in Minneapolis and what ICE was doing and how it was what they did was criminal and why there's what the reaction was from the Trump administration and why that was so outrageous. But how have you explained it to your kids? I mean, you're right there. They're literally feeling it and breathing it.
Well, it's just been one of these things. Me starting as a writer happened when my kids were like 6 or 7 and we were at the drive-through. I walked to get some popcorn. I came back and just to catch somebody say to my infant child, "This is America. We speak English," because we're a Spanish-speaking household. My wife's an immigrant. And I came up on the tail end of this. I'm like, "Excuse me, you got something to say?" And the guy just, runs off. And these tough guys are always there to hassle women and children, but they won't talk to an adult about it, and they always hide it. And that's really this whole mechanism of this hate ideology that permeates the United States. It goes back to the original sin of slavery that this country has never accounted for, and it just endures, and everything is spoken in dog whistles. They hide their language. They figure out ways to kind of indoctrinate the population to be accepting.
They propagandize everybody so that they don't realize any of the things that you're saying right now.
Yes. And that's why nobody's reacting.
Enough people. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
We need to activate people. No, I was just saying that's why we have to activate people because everybody's still way too passive. And, people are like, well, we'll have the elections and we'll be able to. There's so much we can do right now. There's so much we have to do now. I mean, the regime is already smearing the good name of Nicole Good. And it's just like they want to save their own butts about this, and of course we have to stand up for what's right.
And I just took in something you said there. I had to comment on, and again, this is sort of the it's been referred to as the boiling of the frog, which is I've been told not an accurate actual analogy, but everybody knows what it means, so we'll use it. Where things happen slowly and you don't notice. And what's amazing is you were sitting there saying, well, because of what's going on and some of the pushback, as there should be. I would hope everybody would be out in the streets, not non-violently, but still out there. And that could lead them to react violently. But with that said, you're like, I didn't send my kids to school, and I'm thinking to myself, right, you didn't send your kids to a place where only in the United States of America, of high income countries, kids actually can die too and not come home alive. You chose to keep your kids at home where they actually were safer than they were in school, because another thing we have chosen to just ignore and let proliferate. And people shouldn't think this is not part of the same exact sickness. I
Yes.
made a point yesterday. I went nuts in the afternoon. I just was so angry, and I did a impromptu live, comparing, Rosa Elena Gonzalez, who's an 80-year-old Venezuelan woman living peacefully in her apartment in Caracas until we bombed the shit out of it and destroyed it and murdered her.
Yeah.
And what happened to Renee Nicole Good at the hands of ICE fascists shooting her in the back of the head. And that is all of a piece. And it also is with anybody can carry a gun into one of our kids' schools. It's that this ridiculous obsession with and profiting off of violence that, in this country, my God, you say the word, and we can say it here, fuck, and like, oh, everybody on the right, the police are losing their minds over it. Maybe what the real perversion is are children being slaughtered. Maybe blowing up an 80-year-old woman's home in Venezuela, a country we didn't declare war against, that we're committing war crimes even being there. Maybe that's a perversion. Maybe shooting a woman in the back of the head because she tried to drive away from masked men who wouldn't identify themselves. Perversion. I don't know. Maybe we should think about it that fucking way.
Yeah. Well, there's within America's cultural identity is this hate ideology that dehumanizes certain groups. And I always say, that other countries in the world have guns. It's only the United States that has these mass shootings. It's always young white men who do these shootings. And it's because they've been radicalized through white supremacy to see human life as irrelevant. And it's one of these things where so much of the white community fails to call this out. I mean, I've been saying to people, the tactics of this government are fascist, but we have to recognize that this government, it's not imported from elsewhere what's going on. This is our original sin. This is a white supremacist regime. They are the continuation of the Confederacy. They're the KKK. They're in charge. They've made Antifa, a terrorist group, but the KKK has never been designated as a terrorist group. We just pretend that those things don't exist. And this hate ideology radicalizes kids and makes them think. And it's everything in American culture. American exceptionalism is another way of just saying supremacy, telling us that our country is the best, other countries are bad. They're willing to bomb other countries. They don't even think about the casualties, because so many people in the United States of America have internalized that they think people from South America are subhuman, and that's abhorrent. And it's something we need to talk about. And this is what happens when you don't teach the honest truth about our country.
Well, it's also, I'll let David talk about it, but I think it's an important point to say that it's also what happens when you let one group of lunatics with money build an enormous propaganda, which they call media, but that's propaganda infrastructure. And we do nothing, to regulate it, which we can do within our laws, certainly before this Supreme Court came along and made things up. B, you do nothing to counter it by building up something on the left to respond to it. So all you have is corporate media that won't, and so they can keep dehumanizing brown people, black people, everybody as often as they want. And it, we're finally growing in spaces like YouTube and Substack, but I mean, we're nowhere near where they are. In any case, David, go ahead, please.
Well, I was going to say that hatred that you both speak about gets right to the next question I was going to ask, Walter, and that is, I mean, so much of this, at least with Minnesota, seems to be the administration targeting Somalians, right? That there's been an influx of Somalians. You watch, Fox News, the Jesse Waters and J.D. Vance, and like, oh, America has a Somalia problem. And Vance's explanations, because, well, a lot of these people are on welfare. Well, there are a lot of other Americans who are also on welfare, but you don't immediately jump to, well, they must be engaged in fraud if they're on welfare.
And the majority of them are white, actually.
Right. And that's the jump that J.D. Vance makes with the Somalians. But my question, I guess, Walter, is, I mean, the Somalians have been there for a while. What was it like? I mean, having the Somalians as neighbors and as part of the state, say, 6 months ago or a year ago before the Trump administration 2.0 came in?
Oh, I'm not directly involved in that community, but one of the things, it's there's never. I have a couple of friends who are right in there, and they've been active in the communities, helping. It's a kind community. That YouTube video came out that was just complete nonsense.
Yeah.
And it's so offensive to see this propaganda mechanism where they can fabricate these things to just incite violence. But this has been going back a long time. And one of the things, like you said, they just had their massive bailout for the farming industry. And you think about, a couple of years ago, just watch what happens on social media when you say, hey, let's pay off student loans. Everything gets flooded on social media. Oh, this is so bad. Then they give billions of dollars to the farming industry as a result of the ineptitude of this administration. Nobody says anything. And I often go back and say, we talk about taxing the rich, but the reality is this country gives billions and billions and billions. It gives billions to billionaires. And all we have to do, if we just stop the subsidies and the free bailouts and the PPP loans and all that stuff, all that would be acceptable.
Monopolies and billionaires against the rest of us.
And that gets to the whole argument that I say that every sort of Trump claim or Trumpian administration claim is a confession, right?
Absolutely.
Because here they are going after Somalians or people with brown and black skin for somehow being engaged in fraud, but the fraud, to the extent that there is any, is so small and minuscule compared to the Trump White House fraud of whether it's the $500 million ballroom or the $300 million airplane or the Bitcoin or the crypto or the government contracts to Donald Trump's rich friends or to your point, the tax cuts and the corporate subsidies to people who don't need it.
Yep.
Like Doge money that just disappeared.
Yep.
And these kinds of things. They never. I have to say something here, which I think you'll guys will enjoy. You'll enjoy, David. I have to say, here, which is this guy. I don't know if he's still in here, but like, what's wrong with you, dude? The Yankees haven't won anything since 2009. Like, you suck. You have Hal Steinbrenner running things. He's worth $8 billion. The Yankees, like the Dodgers, have been eating your lunch. Like, why is it that the Yankees suck? Why is it that you've gone so long without a World Series? Oh, we're going to pay Josh Donaldson $25 million. And the guy literally, his arms and legs fall off. And then you just cry and you whine like all you New York Yankees fans do. What is it about you that you suck so badly? I need you to explain this. Oh, and Brian Cashman, he's a really good GM. Okay, we can get rid of him now. By the way, Walter, I'm a Yankees fan. I've never gotten to do that before, where I got to go after some asshole right winger on the Yankees who's probably crying.
Yes, it must be particularly frustrating when these trolls and these right wing nut jobs appropriate your sports team. That's not nice.
It is exactly like this guy's. You're not worthy, my friend. But no, it'd be like if somebody came here like Michigan, and they were a right wing, and David went after him and started insulting Michigan. So I thought I'd have fun for once instead of. But whoever you are, you're still a putz and a loser, and you probably live in your mom's basement, and you probably are the exact person who is suffering at the hand. Either you're a bot or you're the exact person who's getting screwed 5 ways from Sunday right now. So Elon Musk in his 17th mansion. So good move, pal. It's really all working out great for you. Okay. Now let's get back to where we were. I had to have fun. I mean, come on.
You do a little bit.
Oh, wait. There's somebody from Reds. Oh, it's Red One. I was going to say, because I live in Cincinnati, and be like, if there's a Reds fan being an asshole here too, I could go 2 for 2 in ripping my own teams. But no, it's not. Okay. I mean, I lived for a short period of time. And again, like, this is the kind of stuff that doesn't even need to be spoken or said, but yet with these racists, you sort of have to. I lived for a short period of time in Columbus. On the way that we were moving to Cincinnati, and I got a job with the Democratic Party there a while ago, 2008. And they've got a vibrant Somali population too, not quite what Minneapolis has. And it was weird. Like, there are these people that were Somali, and they like said hi, and they held doors, and they were friendly, and they were kind, and they paid their taxes, and they were great neighbors to have around us. And and in that way, what was interesting is they were no different than anybody else. I mean, it doesn't make you a good person because you call yourself New York Yankees 7. You're an asshole. I don't want to live next to you. But the Somalian population, considering it's more the people we're talking about who have most abused welfare are white people. The
Yes.
people that have most abused subsidies
Yeah.
are white people. And I don't like singling out any group of people. I don't like doing that as a thing, but I think as a white guy, I have to do that,
Yes.
especially as a white straight guy. Like, get your own shit together
Yes.
before you
Yes.
start going and questioning other people, please.
That's very good.
Okay. In any case, somebody else take over from here.
Well,
David, ask a smart question, David.
Well, I mean, look, to sort of give everybody sort of updates on the news out of Minnesota, and Walter, as you pointed out, there have been some confrontations and clashes between protesters and ICE and DHS. There's news now that there's I'm forgetting the name of the agency, but there's a Minnesota agency that's involved with criminal apprehension, criminal investigation. And anytime there's a shooting or a murder, they are involved. And when it involves a federal issue, they work with the FBI to go through the crime scene and to collect evidence. And this Minnesota agency announced this morning that they were being shut out by the FBI, that the FBI was essentially hoarding all the evidence. The FBI wants to do this entire investigation themselves without this state agency that was created by the Minnesota legislature to make sure that there's so it sort of then gets to, okay, we're back to sort of the way the Trump administration treated the Epstein files, and that if there's something they don't like, they bury it at the FBI and DOJ. And I can't imagine, Walter, that that's going over very well in Minnesota.
Well, at this point, everything is just chaos. I mean, like I said, I didn't sleep much last night. You're just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. But the hallmark of this whole administration has been that avoiding accountability at all costs. And it goes back to prior to the election, because we see the whole system in the United States of America is set up where a loathsome white billionaire is allowed to, commit an insurrection and do fraud. And he should have been kicked off the ballot multiple times. And every time there's an obstacle, the door is open, he's pushed through. And if there are obstacles, those obstacles are put in front of the accomplished, brilliant, compassionate Black woman who's running against them. And so this is just the reality. We have more than just one man that is our issue here. That whole mechanism that allows white men to control our entire government, that control all the wealth, that control police force, that control the judicial system. We need diversity in all parts of our society, because everything right now, we're not getting the best people in these positions, and just the lack of accountability to the point where men who may or may not even be law enforcement agent can stop your vehicle wearing body armor. Maybe they just bought that at the Army surplus store.
Yeah, who would
Their
stop
faces
for
are
that?
covered.
They
don't tell who they are. We don't even know who the name of the shooter is. They claim he's theirs, but have they really acknowledged it? What's his name? What's his background? They haven't said.
Did you see
Why are they
Walter?
hiding?
I had a video shared with me by
Yes, I saw that.
Matt McNeil. David was on his show last night. Matt is the host, and you should all listen to Matt soon. If things look like the direction they're going, you're going to be able to hear Matt every day at Blue Ant Media, because we, as we say, like to amplify independent media, and that's one of the few independent-owned stations in the country. And Matt is fantastic, and he'd sent me that video of the guy literally with an SS tattoo on his neck, and it's like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Yep.
I mean, we're at that point. Like, these guys have had no training. A bunch of them are January 6th thugs. A bunch of them have criminal records. Like, I mean, this is a bunch of shock troops. This is a Stasi. It is not a legitimate federal force.
Yeah.
And I just, I mean, we've talked about it yesterday too. I just want everyone. I mean, it seems like Minnesota's angry enough now that they're saying they're investigating this like a crime. Good. But I just wish Democratic attorneys general and Democratic district attorneys in the city would stand up and say, anybody who is not following the laws of our city or our state will be arrested. It means if you try to kidnap somebody, which would be stopping them without identifying who you are with a mask on, it doesn't matter whether you get them or not. If I even see you try, I'm arresting you. You're going to follow the laws of the United States of America and of the state of Ohio or Connecticut or Minnesota, or you're going to be arrested.
Yeah.
I just wish they would, I mean, it won't happen in Ohio because we have a cheesy fuckhead, right-wing attorney general, but maybe Connecticut and Minnesota, that could happen. And I don't know, again, I'm going to keep saying this until they do it.
Yes.
You have the power to do this, guys. Do it. We've lost a life already.
Yeah.
We've probably lost a lot of others we don't know about.
Yeah, it's not going to stop until somebody stands up to them. That's the way it is with bullies, and we deserve to be protected. And the whole point of the Constitution, the whole point of the Bill of Rights, we're entitled to certain legal protections. We're entitled to our day in court, not to get shot 3 times in the face, instantly in that moment. And this is an ongoing problem, though. We've all seen the videos of young black men getting pulled over and getting shot too. These things this is an ongoing problem. It's come to a boiling point now. ICE has been problematic since the moment it was conceived. This has always been going on. There was a report a couple years ago that was put out about how white supremacist groups have infiltrated law enforcement across the country. This is an issue, and they're coming for everybody eventually. That's what
they always like to suppress all of these reports, right?
It's gone now. That report's
forget
gone.
that one that came out during Obama. That was it. Janet Napolitano had put out about how there were veterans who were returning. They had the skills. This was not an attack on all veterans, but of course the right pretended. The ones who then,
of course, they
supported the guy who attacked the Gold Star families, and the guy who said that they were suckers and losers for dying, whatever. In any case, pretended that's what it was about. But that's not what it was about. It was that some folks might be suffering from PTSD. They had weapons training, and they could join law enforcement. And this was a real worry because of white supremacist ideology. And of course, that was the right the fact that the right got offended by that really should have been the tell, shouldn't it have?
Yes.
Well, I think the other tell about how things are different, right? Because you can always make the argument that that ICE has been bad from the start, that it's always been attractive to white nationalists and to lunatics and all that. But the difference, and I think this is where it's so troubling to a lot of us, is that now this is institutionalized among our leadership, right? Because you can take any organization, you can take media, you can take journalism, you can take police. There's always going to be bad apples. The difference, though, is that if this was just, okay, it's a bad apple, it's a guy who did something he shouldn't have, then the response from leadership yesterday, from Kristi Noem, from Donald Trump, would have been something tragic happened. Yeah. We don't know what. We're not going to comment until the investigation is complete. Instead,
that's what a professional would say, right?
They went right to blaming the victim. You had, J.D. Vance calling this a deranged leftist. I mean, they are smearing the woman who was killed. And to me, that's the reveal, that this is not just about, looking the other way, about, the white supremacists and the J6ers who are part of ICE and DHS. Now there's an active encouragement of this from the top of American leadership. They are actively, for whether it's fascist reasons or control or power, but they are institutionally trying to promote this horrific atmosphere of hatred and bigotry and division. And maybe that's always existed in the United States, but I don't think we've ever seen it promoted from the top the way we've seen it over the last, during the Trump administrations.
I've been calling it ethnic cleansing, what they've been doing, which is a sanitized way of saying genocide, but they're trying to remove everybody. I mean, you look at the Kavanaugh stops where he specifically says in his just offensive ruling that if somebody is speaking Spanish or speaking English with an accent, that all of a sudden that's probable cause to grab them. Yeah, and it's just like, you're not even
know what
hiding.
Might be probable cause? You know whose family that is, everybody?
Yeah.
Look at the fat white guy on the left side. Well, left side for me. That's J.D. Vance's family. I wonder, I mean, these guys never think that this kind of thing is going to harm them. But, his kids can't always be with him. I mean, I guess they've got Secret Service protection at this point. But you know what? All these other family members can't always be with him. And what he is doing every day with the kind of racism he's spewing, he lives about a mile down the road from here, and I think I could smell him from here. It makes me sick. He is with every one of these individuals in here. He's endangering their lives in the United States with what he's doing.
Yes.
And yet not a second thought, because power.
Oh, and is that it? I mean, you ask, what's the purpose? What do you gain by delegitimizing people, by scapegoating people, by demeaning and smearing people? What do you gain?
I think it's power with him. He got wealthy with Peter Thiel and that group of galoots, out in the West Coast. So, I mean, I don't think it's about money. He didn't need that. Also, people who fell for his shtick, when he wrote Hillbilly Elegy and tried to claim that a part of Ohio that's literally right near me here is in Appalachia, which is hours away from here, and tried to pretend he had a completely different upbringing than he had. you know, like that. I have to believe with the money he has, it's about power. He clearly, there are people that just, you know, I always believe in evolutionary biology, and it just goes wrong in certain ways with people. These guys that need to hoard all the resources, these guys that need to hold on to all the power. It's like something has gone wrong with them mentally,
Yes.
you know, with their, you know, chemically, I don't know. But the fact that he had a perfectly respectable, I mean, not from my point of view, but from a lot of people's points of view, career, and written a best-selling book, had worked out, you know, for venture capital and whatever, but he was willing to embrace, lie for, smear people, attack Zelensky, say anti-Semitic things, say racist things, say, you know, dump a former trans friend of his, and all these other things that he was willing to do. That friend wrote an article about how they were friends, for power. Just tell you what a sick individual he is.
I would say they're just talentless people. They have no ability to create anything. You look at that. And so what they do is they see the creations of others and they stamp their name on it. And that's why they hoard wealth, because they're incapable of creating their own wealth. They hoard power. Like decent people who can create their wealth, they end up giving it away, you know? And so then we end up with a collection of rich people who are the very worst examples, because they're the hoarders, the talentless people who have used unlawful
and
means
they like
together.
feudalism, right? Where I mean, their whole point is they could to extract from the rest of us, which is what they're doing. Cancel a program, give Peter Thiel another contract for you know, his parasite organization that wants to suck up all of our data. I mean, these things are all connected. And again, I'm going to keep talking about this through the election. Anybody who thinks they're safe out there, ask Elise Stefanik how that went. The loyalty. Ask Jeff Sessions how that went. Anybody out there with money who thinks that, you know, just because you're wealthy, ask Khodorkovsky how it went when Putin got angry at him. You're not safe. You're not safe from Trump. You're not safe from these people. And the truth of the matter is, I don't care if you make $5 million a year. They're still extracting from you to give to the billionaires. And they still, if you complain about it, will toss you in prison if they get the kind of power they want. Everybody needs to understand that it's us against a couple of fascistic oligarchs and a fascistic hillbilly Fifth Avenue family that we all were unlucky enough to have settled in our country, in the disgusting Trump clan. And I spell that with a K.
Yeah, that's accurate. And they only love bomb because they intend to sacrifice you later when the heat gets too hot for them. That's how narcissists behave. So yeah, don't fall for it.
Walter, I want to ask you about I was asking you about this before the show started, but on your Substack, you have this terrific column about the link between how essentially U.S. oil has been the foundation for white supremacy. I wonder for our audience if you can explain a little bit about that and what you found in putting this column together.
Oh gosh, that one is a hard one, and it's just one that kind of goes back to the Tulsa race massacre. And this story is the intertwining of all these just various atrocities that have gone on, but oil was discovered essentially at the end of the Civil War. And so those with the grievance mentality, you know, the people who put on their pointy hats and made their little club in the woods that has been the hate ideology that's still contaminating us to this day, they just decided that oil was theirs, that was to restore the glory of the South. And so this is still this toxic ideology still endures. You've seen that language reflected in the fact that they've been claiming that Venezuela stole oil that rightfully belongs.
I mean,
it's insanity. Yeah.
When did they do that? 300 years ago?
But that's how their mind think, because that's what happens when you get that white supremacy mindset. It doesn't make any sense. You start reforming reality to fit this toxic hate ideology. And so what happened with the Tulsa race massacre was there was the one group of enslaved people that got reparations were those that were enslaved by native populations. So, and of course, the United States just relocated native people to rocky, barren land. So that's where...
which, by the way, also is considered genocide and a war crime when you forcibly, you know, send people on the trail of tears. But I digress.
Yeah, well, at one point, the Native American population controlled about 20% of the American oil reserves because they put them, even though they only had a small part of land, they put them in all these oil-rich places. And of course, you can document all these acts of Congress where they stole those rights back. You know, the original treaties have been erased. But there was a brief time in Tulsa where Black Wall Street came into existence because the Black community that had gotten land through that mechanism was able to use that oil to to enrich themselves, and they just got completely annihilated by the white population.
But they're doing well, right? And the white population resented them, and we're just waiting for that one. This will remind you of things today. That one explosive kind of thing. Somebody is killed, or someone is sadly raped, or whatever, and then they can say,
"Oh yeah,
they did it," and it gives them an excuse to go on this kind of almost. I mean, it's gross. It's like an orgiastic, like they enjoy going and harming people. Like it's like a thrill. To go and destroy people. It's sick.
And the
you
number
see it
of
in Trump when he sort of licks his lips when he sees violence happening.
And the number of atrocities like that in American history are just, it'll make you sick because there's so many, and it's all hidden. And we don't. And what we're looking at right now in our modern history is this consequence of teaching this sanitized history, where they say, "Hey, we don't want them to feel bad about themselves." It's like, when people are guilty of heinous acts, maybe feeling a little bit bad about yourself helps you build accountability. It helps you become a better person. And that's the direction the United States needs to take. Accountability for our
as you were saying that, I kept thinking of one of the things that I admire today about modern day Germany is that they are totally fine, and they embrace teaching kids and society about the atrocities of World War II. And it's ingrained into Germany that, we had something that we did that was terrible. And as a result, they are a better society for it now. And why we can't follow that same path and acknowledge mistakes of slavery and racism and everything else. It's just, it's baffling to me.
No, well, it's just funny. Funny is not the right word. Just ironic is the way I meant it. That you're and sort of taking us where I was going to go after what Walter said, which is, a classic example. So you look at Venezuela right now, right? And the thing is, like in Afghanistan and like in Iraq, even though the Iraq war was absolutely wrong, if Afghanistan outside of in my opinion, a special forces mission to get bin Laden and take out some of the top guys is what that should have been. I'm not saying I think there should have been a response there, but not the one we had. And Venezuela obviously is completely ridiculous. If you're not willing to commit and say we're going to be there for 50 to 75 years building civil institutions and building up a democratic culture, you're not going to end up getting what you want anyhow. You're going to get chaos. And I bring this up because in regard to what you were just saying, David, that the original sin may have been slavery, but this was sin 1A, which was when Rutherford Hayes, to get, of course, Florida in the election that was disputed between him and Samuel Tilden, and I believe it was 1872, was it? His deal with them was we would pull out of Reconstruction if he would get the electoral votes. And that's what happened. And so Grant, who was smeared by all of history, all these historians of the time that were lost causers because, the fact that he was to the left of Lincoln on race, he actually believed at that period of time that black and white were equal, not just that we shouldn't have slaves. And so he pushed Reconstruction. And that's why you had black owners of farmers, owners of businesses, Congress members, governors, senators. And that was, I don't know that the problem is, I don't know that we can do now. Like we needed to do it then. We needed to break that white supremacist Southern culture in a million little pieces, just the way we needed to break the Nazi culture into a million little pieces. And, the racist Japanese-based culture that they started their war on into a million little pieces. And we didn't. And we are still living with that. Instead, we went exactly backwards. Like they integrated baseball, they unintegrated it. Just things like that. And I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not an expert sociologist. Are there things there's a lot we can do today, but we can never get back that period of time when we could have kind of constituted that culture like we did in Germany and Japan. We failed there.
Well, you're doing it right now. You're doing the work you need to do. And I appreciate it. I want to tell you guys, thank you so much for bringing me on here. I do my best to use my platform to elevate other voices. So I really, really appreciate you bringing me on here. But having these conversations.
This doesn't mean you're leaving, does it?
No, I just wanted to give you your flowers right now. And it's just having these conversations is so important. And, like one of the things, just facts. If we just talk about facts, if we just talk about history, things change. Like, My wife is an ELL teacher. She helps these refugee kids all the time. Why are there refugee kids? Well, because the U.S. government goes and destabilizes countries in South America.
Right.
So their country falls apart. There's no food. Where do they go? And they've been told by all the propaganda and all Hollywood, well, this place has money. This place is supposed to be kind. Give me your tired masses yearning to be free. And so they come here. And so we create all these problems. And if we would just stop installing right-wing regimes in South America. And I spent 10 years living in Peru. I've been to Venezuela a couple of times. And from the moment I stepped off the plane from the United States to South America, something in the atmosphere, there was a kindness that I never felt in the United States.
Yeah.
People take
I've been
care
to
of you.
Ecuador. I haven't been to the other places. It's the same thing, man.
Yes.
Everybody was so nice. And considering the things that we've done
Yeah.
in Latin America, there's a lot of reasons for them not to be. And they just
Absolutely.
were fantastic.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Again, I can't quite understand why is it that we can't be accountable for our own history with how we've treated Latin America? Why can't we sort of teach in the schools, here's how we did wrong
Yes.
with how we treated all these people? And there's something I feel like that's sort of embedded in our culture about not being able to admit mistakes. And I'll give you an example. Cliff, you were talking about racism in the South and breaking that into 1,000 pieces, 1,000,000 pieces. I remember many, many years ago, at some point I was in South Carolina or whatever, and some guy drives past with a bumper sticker, and it has the stars and bars, and it says, "You just think it's over." Now, in most societies that have come to grips with their evil past, somebody, wouldn't feel comfortable with that kind of message in public because they would be shamed out of existence. In America, it's almost like by being provocative and edgy and racist that they are rewarded for, that it's okay. There's no shame in saying, I'm not going to acknowledge the mistakes of the past. I'm going to go in the other direction.
Well, it's also glorifying treason.
Yeah.
And you'd think that would matter. And again, I've talked about this also. I think and not to say this is an easy topic to handle, but we have, in my opinion, embraced a First Amendment extremism in the same way we embraced a Second Amendment extremism, such that the way we enforce these laws are not what they were meant to be. Remember, we did used to talk about yelling fire in a crowded theater. We do rightfully ban child porn just because it's considered too dangerous to have out there. We do not allow you to threaten the president's life. We have exceptions to where free speech is allowed. And in Europe, if you're not allowed to show a Nazi symbol,
right,
or you go to prison. I still think in Germany still, I would argue, has a pretty vibrant democracy and pretty vibrant free speech. Have they lost anything by doing that? I would argue they have not. And in fact, I'd argue they've gained things because those sowing discord and trying to sell disinformation have fewer weapons at their disposal. And that's why it's been this big fight over, why the right screams and yells about free speech when they don't mean it. It's about this, because they're threatening the European Union and these European countries that have said, no, we're not going to allow anything to go online. We're not going to allow you to share information that tells people not to use necessary vaccines and kills them. We're not going to allow you. I mean, whereas we have refused to a degree where it's not even about free speech in the United States. We know that a lot of these accounts are coming from outside of the United States, and we won't even regulate them. They don't have that right here.
Yeah.
So it's not even a debatable thing with them, and we won't do it. So we're allowing people to get away with this kind of behavior.
Yes.
In the United Kingdom, libel laws being different, you can't say certain things there that you can't. The way someone like these guys would get up and say they were letting the babies be born and then killing them. You can't do that there. You would be arrested, as I think you should be, because you're saying something that is beyond the bounds of being acceptable, and you're putting people's lives in danger.
Yeah. And consider the narrative, how people will often say, oh, the Democrats they've become too woke. They've gone too far with this woke stuff. Nobody ever says the Republicans have gone too far with this white supremacy stuff. Right. And it's like, why don't we say that? We should be pushing back. And it's because this mechanism, it's the same group owns the media. They only allow certain narratives through. And exactly like you were saying.
Are you questioning Barry Weiss's credentials? Because I can't have that on my show.
I'm just going to not even address that. I want to
spend a lot of important time not being an editor So she's really good at editing and stuff. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say there's this whole model mechanism built up where these right-wing hate groups are extremely well funded. They're allowed to spread propaganda. There's no equivalent of that on the left where we just talk about compassion and kindness and how to be like a decent father rather than like this abusive patriarch. So there's this massive gap where we're not even allowed to answer. And it's all in service to this unjust mechanism of white supremacy by which, as we said before, all the white men are able to get all the money and own all the positions of power. And until we start dismantling that and allow alternate perspectives, people that are actually qualified, people are actually experts to tell our kids what's best for them medically, this society doesn't have a chance of survival. I mean,
well, I would argue, Walter, I mean, I don't know if I'll fully disagree. I'm not going to fully disagree with you. Obviously, with you to a lot. And right now, I 100% agree with you. I think we were moving since at least sort of the 90s in that direction. Maybe I would argue too slowly, but there's no doubt if you look at stats, you're starting to get more diversity in places, in business and in government. And we elected, I'm not going to be, we elected Obama, everything was solved, but we did elect Obama, and we do have a black Supreme Court justice. In other words, we embraced the mentality of we want diversity because everyone who has different life experiences have different things to bring to the table. You should want that. And again, don't get me wrong, we still have a long way to go, but I would argue we were moving in that direction. And then this gelatinous Jabberwocky creep came down the escalator, almost broke it. And ever since then, he and his wife, who, by the way, we've never had explained how she got to stay here with her visa and what the deal is there, which would be nice to know if you really want to kick out immigrants. The fact that there's inconsistencies in her story and Elon Musk's, you'd find interesting. But in any case, ever since that's, they started openly pushing white supremacy. I mean, this crap they sent out, over Christmas, all the Jesus-y, tweets, which I don't even care about. It's just that the government shouldn't be doing that. It's below them and it's gross. Like, and that kind of stuff. Like they instead have purposely embraced that.
Yeah, there's certainly been eras of progress. And I would say that I think one of our big issues is we were hit by social media. I mean, the internet has been this just cataclysmic change to all of humanity. And it's an advancement of technology that happened so fast, we weren't necessarily to perceive the dangers.
Especially and like these algorithms. Media.
Yeah, the algorithms that promote hate speech have really amplified something, but all this was laying dormant and we never really addressed. I mean, there's so much of American history where people our assumptions about humanity as Americans are influenced by this toxic ideology where we'll say, well, people always abuse each other throughout history and people are always become slaves. And it's really just, you make these assumptions about history that are designed to justify the very worst people that ever lived. And we've just never embraced that maybe human beings can be good. Maybe there are decent human beings out there. And if we cultivate that and give power to that group, rather than constantly giving justifications for these horrid people from the past, maybe we would have a more beneficial society.
Maybe people who have felt good, you can look at many of them,
their kids
from like a Martin Luther King type figure, or Cesar Chavez, or so many others out there who actually felt better when they were doing things for other people. Yes. Imagine that.
Yeah,
well, I guess they're suckers and losers, right?
And the inevitable question is, how do we confront or take on the horrid people? What can we do? And there's sort of the long-term institutional steps that I think are necessary. And then there's the short-term, which gets to a question that, Cliff, I was going to ask you, and Walter, curious to hear your perspective on this as well. We started the show by talking about ICE and the horridness of ICE and Department of Homeland Security and the lies from Kristi Noem and the rest. There's now a move afoot by some Democratic progressives to cut the funding of ICE and Department of Homeland Security when the government runs out of money again at the end of January. And you've got people like Chris Murphy and Van Hollen and some of the progressives in the House who are saying, there's no reason we should be continuing to
somebody send an invitation to Chuck Schumer to maybe go to Hawaii while that's happening, and then maybe we have a chance of pulling it off.
I'm sort of, channeling now my inner Joe Walsh. The last time we talked with him about the government shutdown, he said it would be a terrible mistake for Democrats to take focus away from the terrible Trump economy. But from a pure political perspective, Cliff, wise idea, or bad idea to try to shut down the government to draw accountability to ICE and DHS?
I will put it very simply because it is, to me, absolutely a wise idea to take stands at key times on key issues. This is going to be now, after what they just did in Minneapolis, this is going to be one of the defining issues of this election.
Yeah.
Do you want an unaccountable, masked, refusing to identify themselves, fascist force of former criminals and white supremacists with SS tattoos on their necks going around with guns, shooting, beating pregnant women, breaking windows without warrants, basically violating the Constitution with every breath they take? Do you want that or not? The thing is here, David, and this is why I made my mention of Chuck Schumer, is you must stick to your guns if you're going to do it. The worst thing you can do of all is to say, I'm going to stand up to this and then cave, which Schumer and pals have now done twice. So my first choice is, yes, shut the government down over it. I thought we should have last time said until all these ICE guys are off the street, or every single one of them has a mask off, is identified, and the rest, and has a body camera. Then either that happens, and the National Guard is out of every damn city, so that we're respecting our Constitution, or we're going to shut down the government. That to me is a fight absolutely worth having. Yeah. If you will have that fight, the second best thing is don't have that fight, because the worst of all of them is start that fight and then give in for nothing.
Mm-hmm. Walter, your thoughts?
Absolutely. You have to oppose. I mean, and this is the moment we have to activate the resistance. We have to activate people's minds where they recognize the fight we're in. This is a criminal. It's a criminal regime. It's a white supremacy regime. They're hurting us. They're killing people. They're killing innocent people. There's no negotiating with this. This regime thinks my family is subhuman, and they've made that clear. They are racist. And, I'm worried about the safety of my family every day. I'm not going to talk to them. I know their viewpoint. I reject it. It's oppose, oppose, oppose. Every mechanism you have, every legal, lawful mechanism, every peaceful mechanism, we can do that. And that's what we have to do. We can't sit here with these passive solutions and then trying to make deals with them. They don't make a deal. They intend to honor. Right. That's another thing about whites.
A deal with Donald Trump? We should all go to a list of former contractors and business partners and wives, if any of them are still alive and not buried on golf courses for tax breaks.
We got to stop the murders.
I agree with both of you. I think we should shut down the government if necessary to tackle ICE and DHS. But I also think that there needs to be, Cliff, to your point, some very clear, quantifiable goals in terms of what Democrats will accept in terms of reform of ICE. And I think Democrats should be willing to say, okay, we will allow Department of Homeland Security, which does a lot more than immigration roundups, and we will allow Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which does more than just the deportations. We will allow them to exist, but to your point, they must have cameras. They must follow due process. They must follow court orders. They cannot just willy-nilly grab people off the street because they look brown or black or have a Latino name. There's got to be some quantifiable
and just beat people up or shoot first or any of that stuff. They are held to the same standards as any other member of law enforcement are held to. Frankly, they're not even held to tough enough standards because qualified immunity sucks, but that's another conversation.
Right. And to your other point, Cliff, I agree with you that I'm not confident, though, that Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries have it in them to do this fight.
Right. So if they don't, just don't do it. Right. Because again, think of I am so far. We should one of these times have somebody on. Actually, the host on this channel on Tuesday, my friend Matt Robeson, worked. I don't know if he worked in the Senate. He definitely worked in the House. So, but we need somebody who knows the rules really well. I mean, there's so many ways that we could have gummed up the works and made this harder for them. There's unanimous consent, which we could not give. I've never worked in the Senate, and I even know that. So something that would take 2 minutes will take 3 or 4 days to slow them down.
Yes.
If we really felt like that what ICE is doing is that important, and if you don't feel like it's that important, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with you. I don't know if you've read the Constitution. I don't know if you believe in democracy, but you don't believe in this one. And so if it's that important to you, you do that. You literally slow the Senate almost to a halt until you use and where has Schumer been on that? I mean, that's my problem, is they have not used all of the tools there. A bunch of Democrats have tried. And so, to be very clear, Democratic Party is the good party. The Republicans are the evil one. The Democrats have some amazing members who, you mentioned Chris Murphy, who fought like hell. Van Hollen is another one comes to mind. Tammy Duckworth comes to mind. Our problem is our leadership sucks, and we have been unable to replace them. And we need to replace them with people that actually understand tactics, strategy, and messaging, and have the courage to enact all three.
Absolutely.
Well, and you'll appreciate, Cliff, because Amy Klobuchar, Minnesota senator, who's technically part of the Democratic leadership, and I think close to Chuck Schumer, she gave this when she was asked about whether government should be defunded because of ICE, and she gave this thing. Well, I'm pained by what happened in Minnesota, and it's something that should be. I think she said something like it should be studied.
If you say pained, then I actually don't even want to hear the rest of your sentence.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
when you start off like that, like with Hakeem Jeffrey's statement in Venezuela, pursuant to the Constitution. Okay, shut the fuck up. Yeah. Nobody speaks like that. I don't want to hear what you have to say anymore. If you don't start with the illegal attack, the war crime committed by Donald Trump, by the way, convicted felon.
Yeah,
I want it. That's the way, and that's what Seth Moulton did, and that's why Seth Moulton on that. That's the kind of leadership.
And Hakeem Jeffries, he's almost there. I mean, in his language, he said what happened in Minnesota was an abomination, and he said that was a flat-out, stone-cold liar. Okay, yes, we agree with you, and because of that,
take that next step.
Shut down the government, shut down ICE and DHS. You've just made your case.
Right.
I think there's some consultants within the Democratic Party that are deliberately sabotaging them because their message is so bad. I mean, you look at some of the things that James Carville has said over the years, like telling Obama to go take a toke on a crack pipe. You know, he said that. And it's like, we can't have that kind of language and listening to these people that take the wind out of our sails. And that's what we always see out of the Democrats. Right when they start to make progress.
People that say, just step back and let them, hang themselves, the old line goes and whatever. And it's like, every time that line is given, that is the dumbest. You put your foot on the fucking accelerator and you from like an action movie, go flying through a fucking wall or a window. When the other side, is in trouble because they've got internal strife, and Marjorie Taylor Greene's fighting with Donald Trump, and they're doing something that's unpopular and they're in trouble, is when you come out and you message and you attack and you attack and you attack. It's not when you just hide somewhere and let them. I mean, again. I think for the environment maybe we're in the 90s, James Carville was a good strategist, but it's been a long time since he should have been put out to pasture. I don't know what world he's living in now, but it's not the one that I'm seeing every day. And again, as somebody who was one of those Democratic consultants, I can speak to that. Like, I've been in plenty of those rooms, and I wish it were only a few, like you said, Walter, but it's not even a few. There's a whole lot who are just thinking about what their cut of the ad buy is going to be. And I hate saying this because I have some friends who are really good friends who are among that group, who are good people, who do care about what is best for the country and not just, making the most money. But there's also a big group of them who and they've hung around Washington for fucking ever.
Yeah.
Most of them are a decade older than me, and they just need to go away.
Yeah. And again, thank you guys. Cause I mean, I'm a little blue dot in a red county, and it's just like every day I talk to 2 out of every 3 people I talk to are supporters of this regime. And I think voices like mine get overlooked. I mean, the Democratic strategy is always only the blue wall. And it's like, we need to win all the states. That's what we need, a larger strategy. We got to think bigger.
Well, I mean, think about it. Go ahead, David.
I was going to say, where things are going in Minnesota. I mean, how this sort of plays out over the next weeks and months. Does it explode in the way that the George Floyd protest did? Does it sort of die down? You have a feeling about that?
It's so hard. It's so hard to guess. I think there's the potential for that. People like you are going to be critical because we've been pushed out of the media. I mean, the voice of reason has been completely pushed out. The regime, it's just propaganda. The mainstream legacy media is just propaganda now. I expect them to be attacking Renee Good's character this whole time. We have to defend her. We have to stand up.
At the very least, they'll repeat the both sides. Well, some
Yeah,
people,
that's just as
it won't
bad.
matter what the objective truth is of what she's done in her life. I'll be like, well, some people say she's a horrible criminal who had it coming.
That's what
Other
they
people
always
say
do,
she
yeah.
was a nice
Well,
person.
Or the
And-
one that I love, not love, but I mean facetious here. The one is that, well, some people say the video shows
Right.
the officer shooting from the side, and some people say no. And I'm like, some people just look at the video.
There
You
are
can
things that are
tell.
fact. There are things like science
Yeah.
and history. There are actual facts where it's not some people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the both siderism, whatever we call it, of the
it's
mainstream
killed.
media on all of this stuff is just mind blowing.
Yeah,
You know,
they
it's
use a lot
It's
of
made
rhetorical.
corporate media a joke. I mean, it's made
Yeah.
it just
Yes.
because they don't educate. Their whole purpose is to sort of impart information upon people that is useful to their
Yes.
lives, so they understand our political system, they understand corruption and these things. And so when you just say, well, this person says that Donald Trump having his own his own little Bitcoin factory is corrupt, and no, it's not. These people say there's a fucking law that says it.
Yes.
You know, I mean,
yes.
it just is. They're just useless. They're
Or like when they say underage woman instead of child, when they're talking about child rape, which is we're also another thing that we're dealing with right now. And it's just the level of rage in the public is just not where it should be. People, and I don't understand why people are not yet aware of what's going on. Like you said, hopefully this last tragedy will be the last one. And I'm terrified that there will be more loss of life. I want to prevent that because I care about human beings.
I would say this, Walter, like 7 million people, I believe it was, for the last No Kings rally.
We're close.
And if that's right, then that means that's 2% of the U.S. population. That's pretty impressive. We need to get it higher. I think there are. I would. Here's what I would say to what you said, which is, considering the record of these people, which again, somewhere between, I don't know, Suharto and Idi Amin, there should be a hell of a lot more people angry and disgusted. And yes, it should be 75% of us out in the street. So I will agree with you, but I think for nuance sake, there are. I mean, when you see Democratic candidates for statewide office in Georgia winning by 24 points, when you see that we hadn't had a Democratic mayor in Miami in 20 or rather 30 years, and we win by 20 points, there are a lot of very angry people. There are a lot of people who are rising up. There are a lot of people whose opinions have been changed. I started yesterday on the live that I did, referring to it. There's two different gyms I go here for various reasons, and one of them I refer to as MAGA gym because I overhear these folks talking about it. I'm going to start quoting them more often, and and I'm not going to do anything pretend. If they say stuff that's bad for us, I'm not going to be like that stupid kid that used to say, I overheard in a coffee shop that these liberals love Trump. I'll be a woman who's like been a Tucker Carlson and a Trumper and all this stuff. And just like yesterday, she was talking about how Trump is controlled by Putin and all of this stuff, and she's lost faith in him. I mean, again,
that's good.
Again, that's anecdotal. At the same time, it's also that's what focus groups are. And this is my little focus group that I'll keep repeating. I do think more people on the Trump side are becoming more disengaged, and more people on our side of things are becoming more active.
I'm just as concerned by the mechanism that allowed him to take power as I am by the man himself. And I think we can't take our eye off the ball. There have a lot of things to fix. We can't just go back to the Biden era and think like that's fine. There's a lot of injustices.
We need new institutions. This needs to be
healthcare, needs to
like
be reformed.
FDR, like Teddy
Education.
Roosevelt, like Lincoln. Like this guy has shown us the many loopholes, the many conflicts of interest that we can't enforce or whatever. There needs to be a whole new period of activism, and that's why we need to have the people out there right now who understand election security, who understand. I'm talking about physical security of people there too.
Recounts.
We need to make sure that this election goes the way it should, because it will be, if people vote, get out there and have the opportunity. If we have the kind of wave we could have, not a win, an enormous ass kicking. That's what we need to be able to put the changes in place.
Some of those changes are already underway, including a whole new media. And related to that, Walter, you're on Substack. Where can everybody find you and your amazing work?
Oh gosh, thank you so much, guys. Yeah, I'm on I'd Rather Be Writing. It's here on Substack. I'm just really so happy with you guys. I really appreciate this time that you spent with me.
But we want people to find you. So
I think that's all I have to say, right? I'd rather be writing on Substack. You could find me there.
All right,
That's
that's
it.
good enough.
I'd rather be writing. That's the name of the Substack, right?
Well, I started off, I was just writing advice, and then I got pulled into this where I'd kind of like to just go back to telling the stories I write them for my kids, you know?
And you know what's cool, guys? Everybody out there, I know. Wouldn't you rather do that? Me
Yeah,
too.
wouldn't that be nice?
Is if you go to Walter's Substack and you get a paid subscription, then you're supporting him, and then he's able to grow, and independent media grows. Same with Blue Amp. If you go to us and you give us a paid subscription, guess what? We can have more people writing more stories, holding more live streams, breaking more stories. So go and subscribe to Walter's and subscribe to ours. And if you can pay, do that, because we'll only all grow. And then there'll be an actual real media out there. It'll be amazing.
And as I like to say, Cliff, just like with voting and just like helping your fellow human beings, you will feel better about yourself when you send that $5 a month or whatever it is to Blue Amp or to Walter or your other favorite progressives. It'll make you feel good.
Yep. And we do have the power to change these things. We do have the power. And every day talking to wonderful people like you gives me new ideas. It reinforces my ideas, helps me fix things, get better, get bigger. And this community has been so special. Without Substack and this wonderful community, this would have been a really hard year. So thank you.
And it's been a really hard year anyhow.
It was. Yeah. Holy cow.
David, I believe, because the theme of children has children to go pick up from school. Oh, I like this, though. I can't leave without this because this is nice.
Oh boy.
I mean, you have to give credit to this person because, like, normally I wouldn't expect. I mean, I guess he's got 5 fingers, so he could sit there and count out to 3. If there had been like 12 of us on this, imagine how perplexed he would have been.
Cliff, if we're getting trolled by people who actually want to take the time to come on a Blue Amp Media to call us morons or whatever, we're doing something right.
Cool, yeah. Thanks for the algorithm boost, Guy Fawkes. We appreciate it. All right,
Walter, great having you on. Thank you so much, Cliff. Great show as always. Thank you, my friend. We'll talk soon.
You guys are awesome, and as the sun sets slowly in the west, we bid you a fond farewell.